Hello, curling fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the Grand Slam of Curling and the Curling Group. John Cullen with you for another Olympic preview, our fifth Olympic preview episode. One more to go after this as we get you prepped for Milano Cortina. And with me is my man, my partner in crime. He's coming to you once again from a snow-ridden Prince Edward Island. He's braved the winter storms to be here for you. It's Robbie Doherty.
I made the 38-second drive to my father's house to record this specially, John.
Proud of you, buddy.
Yeah, I had to shovel my way out the door, but you know what? I was saying daycare was closed the last 2 days, so it's going to be a long episode. Very long.
Yeah,
episode.
you need a little break, do you, Robbie?
Maybe.
Well, hey, I'm proud to be your break. We are getting into some heavy hitters here in this episode. We're going to cover both the Swiss men's and women's teams. We're also going to take a look at the South Korean women and the German men. Before we get to that, though, this episode is brought to you by Goldline Curling. And Robbie, I promised a surprise on this episode last time we talked. It was a surprise to me too, but I'll say if you're not following us on YouTube, this is one you might want to see the video for. But I got my own Team Canada jacket.
Jacobs finally came to their senses and got rid of Tardy.
They got rid of Tardy. I am the official fifth. No, I did tell Paul Webster though that I was coming with them now that I had this jacket, because I thought, like, I went to the Goldline website and I was like, oh, anybody can put their name on the back. But you actually can't. The Goldline did it specially for me. This is the only way I'm ever going to get my name on the back of a Team Canada jacket is by having my podcast sponsor send it to me. But I want to thank them because the jacket is beautiful. Again, we've got that logo that you and I are both wearing on our chest on the back. It's got my last name in Canada, but then I didn't notice this, but the sleeve detail, Robbie, the sleeve detail is beautiful. We've got sort of the hummingbird art that's on the back of this hoodie that I'm wearing. And then I didn't notice this either, but we've got the inside collar. Look at this.
That is sharp.
It says "See Thee Rise." So when you have the jacket zipped up, it's a black. So I've got the red jacket, but it's got a black inside collar with some red designs. And I'm thrilled to have it. And I think it does mean I'm officially on Team Canada. So I have to thank Goldline for that as well. I'm going to try to sneak in. I booked a last minute flight to Cortina, and I'm going to see if I just wear this jacket around.
Yeah.
Can I get in,
Oh, I think it would. My question for you is, now, if you also got one without the name on it, does that mean you're like the towel boy or the water boy for Team Canada? Because I'd take that at this point.
Oh, did you? Yeah, because you got one, but they forgot to put your name on it.
Yes, Mandy's getting a strongly worded email. I'm joking.
Yeah, I know.
We gotta watch
it. She apologized to me. She told me to tell you that it was in her notes, and then her notes got discombobulated, and so you just have a plain one. But I think in some ways that's kind of cool too, because I don't know, given that I've never accomplished anything in curling, I don't know if I'm allowed, can I wear that around? Do you think? I feel like I can't.
Absolutely.
You think I can, even though it's got my own name on it? Okay.
Listen, I hit the ice in 2 hours and 15 minutes for my league game tonight. Don't think that I'm not walking out dressed up in full Team Canada garb.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well then, yeah, screw it. I'll do it. I love it. But no, it is beautiful. I'm going to have it just in the background there as we record, but really a beautiful jacket, and you can own it as well if you head on over to goldlinecurling.com. They've got all the Olympic apparel. If you're not in the market for a jacket, Robbie and I are both. We've got the hoodies, the crew necks, there's t-shirts, everything there. All of Canada's official Milano Cortina on ice gear is Goldline. So head on over to goldlinecurling.com to check that out. All right, let's get to our Olympic previews. Again, we've got 8 teams left to cover. If you don't remember from last time, we're going to introduce each team. We're going to give their world rankings. We're also going to give their doubletakeout.com ranking. That's Ken Pomeroy's ranking system where he takes into account strength of opponent. It's kind of an interesting way to look at the teams. We're also going to look at the Shoreview Sports Analytics percentages for where they are in regards to winning the gold, making the playoffs, and then we'll have just some words about every team in general. So we are going to start with South Korea. Unfortunately, their men did not qualify for the Olympics, so this is the only representative. Well, they have a mixed doubles representative as well, but Team Gim will be holding down the fort in the 4-player game. Unji Gim, they are currently the world number 3, and Ken Palm has them at number 4 on double takeout. So very impressive team. Their record is 50 wins, 24 losses. So they played almost 75 games this season. Extremely busy schedule. Shoreview has their gold medal chances at 4.6%, has their playoff chances at 45.2%. So likes them as a playoff team, but maybe doesn't love them as a gold medal team. However, I will say on the women's side, I think the reason why some of those gold percentages are so low is because we have 2 teams hogging most of those percentages, and we'll get to that. We'll get to one of those teams in a minute. Their best results this year, they won obviously the Korean Nationals, which is what qualified for them qualified them for the Olympics. And honestly, that counts as a big result because they had to beat Ha, they had to beat Kim, they had to beat Kong. So very tough national championship there. They also won the Autumn Gold, which was a slam level field just down the road from me in Okotoks, Alberta, because it was right before Nisku. So Tirinzoni was in that, Vrana was in that, Schwaller was in that, like all the top women's teams were in that event. They also have made the semifinals at 2 slams this year, the Masters and the Players. Robbie, give me your thoughts on Team Gim as they prepare for the Olympics coming up here in about
This is a tough team to make predictions for, I find, because they're so good. They're so solid. They're technically so sound. They win a ton of games, obviously. They make a lot of shots. I've said this about some other teams already on these kind of preview shows, but they don't buffoon anything. Like if they might miss a shot, but they still get like a 3/4 or a half shot out of it and always get something out of it. They're always in the game. It's very rare that they get blown out. But at the same time, you mentioned it when in your kind of setup here, is that in the women's side, there's been 2 clear teams who have been the 1-2 punch. And it's no secret who that is, Homan and Tirinzoni. But at the same time, Gim is certainly capable of beating anybody. They won a slam, I think it was 2 seasons ago. You saw how much that meant to them. They're well coached. Having Guy around was, I think, a big help for them. And they seem to be getting better, but at the same time, it's the 1-2 thing that gets me. Homan and Tirinzoni have been in how many slam finals?
Pretty much all of them.
5 in a row or something?
Yeah, Tirinzoni's 5 in a row. Rachel was 8 in a row until she didn't make the last 2. But yeah, Tirinzoni's 6 in a row, but they made all 5 this year. Rachel made the first 3. Rachel won the first 3 slams, but then didn't make the final in the last 2. But so it's been all Homan and Tirinzoni all the time.
Yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and say they can't do it. But if you just kind of look at that kind of big stage, the Grand Slams, the top teams on great conditions, we just haven't seen them in a final in a long time. And we certainly haven't seen them win. So they're so good. I think they're definitely a playoff team, but I don't know if they're like a front runner, I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, though, for a medal, if that makes sense. It's a really hard team to try to predict. Yeah,
I agree. I agree with pretty much everything you said there as far as I wouldn't put them in with those top 2 teams. And yeah, if you look at their record, I mean, they've struggled against top 10 teams in general this year. Ken Palm has that all laid out on his site, but they're 11-17 against the top 10 this year. So it's when you start to get into the top 25 and then the teams that are 26 plus that they really beat those teams. But yeah, they haven't beaten really a true top team this year other than Hasselborg. They have 1 win over Hasselborg, but they've lost to Tirinzoni all 4 times they've played them this year. They lost to Homan the 1 time they played this year. So yeah, they don't have those results. And I think like if you look at the world rankings, like yes, we've talked about they're 3rd currently in the World Curling Tour rankings, but Rachel Homan is 1st with 488 points. Silvana Tirinzoni is 2nd with 462. Unji Gim is third with 320.
Right.
So they're 140 points behind Tirinzoni, 160 behind Homan. But if you then look at the next highest ranked Olympic team, that's Sayaka Yoshimura, and they're at 252. So they're 70 ahead of Yoshimura. So yeah, they're kind of, I agree with you, Robbie, like they're in this weird gap where you're like, you don't really favor them against Homan or Tirinzoni, but you probably would favor them against a lot of the other teams in the field. And so then you start to, put the mental math together. Well, okay, if they manage to get a win over Tirinzoni or Homan, what does that make them look like, and where does that put them in the field? So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think they're a really, really solid team. They've qualified in every event they've played in this year, except for one. I love Minji Kim. I mean, I've talked about that on the pod before. The third for Unji, I think she just leveled up that whole team. And that's not to say the whole team isn't good, because they are, but Gim had actually fallen out of the slams. They were coming through the tier 2 slam. Like they won a tier 2 slam because they fell down to like the high 20s. They were 26, 27, 28. Then they added Minji out of juniors, and it just seemed like it changed everything. And they've been the clear best team in Korea. And as we said, the Korean program extremely strong right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they are. They're a funny team in that they can beat anybody, but will they beat anybody? And so they're one of those teams, I think, that are, pardon me, they're sitting in that like broad range of where they could potentially end up at the Olympics, I think.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I was trying to say. It's a team that can beat anybody, but will they is a different discussion, especially at the Olympics, especially with how much experience Team Homan has, Team Tirinzoni has on that biggest stage. I just think they're going to have to play so far over their heads if they want to win the gold. I think I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them in a medal game, whatever game that happens to be. And I also think they're going to be a problem for a lot of the top teams. If we see someone maybe get off to a slow start and they need a win and they run into Team Gim, that's a tough win, a very tough win.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, it is hard to think about where they'll go. And what's also fascinating to me, I think, with Korea, just in general, just a quick word on where those teams are at. I mean, we talked about Ha, Kim, Kong. We also have Yubin Park is coming up out of juniors as well. It's just crazy to think like, Gim is also in that spot where Canada used to be, where, we would say, well, okay, yeah, so-and-so team qualified for the Olympics, but if these other 3 teams qualified for the Olympics, they could win as well. And Korea's in that same spot to me too now, where, if Ha was there, if Kim was there, they would also cause problems for lots of other teams in the field. So there is also that factor of Gim winning Korea almost sort of proves that they will have good results in a way. Does that make sense? It feels like, wow, they came out of Korea, they're automatically going to be a problem.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, I agree with that. But on top of that, I think I know that you had mentioned they had fallen down, onto almost the high 20s in the standings, but I think they've proven themselves enough too, as a separate entity of a team that is very friggin' good and capable of winning any game anytime they step on the ice. So going to be a wild card team to watch and a dangerous one.
Yeah, I agree. So if you're just joining us for Olympic previews, how we cap these all off is we give what we think is sort of the team's best finish and what we think is their worst finish. So just if everything goes right, what's the absolute best result they could achieve? And if everything goes wrong, how far could they fall? I'm going to put their best finish at silver. I think there is a chance they could make it into the gold medal game, but if they're in the gold medal game, it's probably against Tirinzoni or Homan, who I would favor over them in a gold medal game scenario. So I'm going to say that their top finish is silver. Again, I don't think they're likely to make the final. I would put Homan and Tirinzoni and Hasselborg ahead of them, I think, in the field.
Me too.
Going in, but I think that is their highest finish. And then their lowest, I really just do think this is a consistent team and I don't see them having a poor week. I think if they miss the playoffs, they're just missing. So I'll say sixth, just because it could be like a log jam. Maybe they're sixth on DSC or something like that. But are you mad because we're going to agree? Why do you get so mad when
yes, because that's my exact picks for this.
So okay.
No, I know. No, but yeah, in all seriousness, I agree. I think that this team, like honestly, in my heart, I think they have it in them and are good enough to potentially get hot enough and win gold.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the Olympics does crazy things to people. I mean, we sit here and we talk about, Homan, Tirinzoni, whatever. Like last Olympics, the two teams in the finals came through the OQE.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
Canada wasn't in the playoffs. The Swiss lost the bronze medal game. Like it just, there's no
Jacobs
guarantee.
2014 came through the Canadian pre-trials and won the gold. Like anything can happen.
But I lost the first game in the Canadian pre-trials, by the way. So if it was the pre-trial system of this year where only one team from the pre-trials goes to the trials, they wouldn't have gone.
Toast.
Yeah.
Crazy. Homer Simpson walking in the bush.
Yeah.
No. I agree with you. And I just don't see them any lower than sixth. They're too good. They're too consistent. There's so many teams that I think, I don't want to say if they have a poor game, they'll probably win. But I think even if they have a pretty good game instead of, that amazing top shelf Olympic performance, that they will still have a good chance to win. So that's what I had them at, was 2 and 6. So second, their best, sixth, their worst.
We're just two geniuses, man. You don't have to. You don't have to be mad when we agree. It's okay. All right. Well, we'll see if we agree about this next team. Obviously, one of the favorites coming into the Olympics. It is the Swiss women, Silvana Tirinzoni. They are the world number 2. Ken Pomeroy has them as number 2 on doubletakeout.com. Their record this season is a whopping 58-9. They are the only kind of top team that has not lost double-digit games. Even Rachel Homan has lost double-digit games this year. She's lost 12. So Silvana Tirinzoni is sort of the last ones standing with that single digit on the loss side of the ledger. And Shoreview Analytics grades them appropriately, has them at a 33.8% chance of gold and a 90.6% chance of making the playoffs. Their best results this season speak for themselves. They won the Players, they won the Canadian Open, so they've won the last 2 slams. They made the finals in the other 3 slams, lost to Rachel Homan each time. They also won 2 very strong tour events. They won in Swift Current and they won in Red Deer. They've made the final in every event they've been in this season except for one. The Autumn Gold was the only event this year where they didn't make the finals. They lost the quarterfinals in Okotoks, but every other event this season, they've been in the finals. They're probably playing better than anybody coming in, including Rachel Homan. Robbie, break Tirinzoni's team down for me. How are they going to do it?
Well, I think there's one obstacle standing in their way, and we all know what that is. And they're going to be wearing a maple leaf in Italy.
Me.
But yes, exactly, John Cullen.
Yep. I'm playing for both teams. I got the jacket, baby.
Yeah.
I'm in for both.
Yeah, you must have a Swiss one kicking around there somewhere.
No, they didn't give me one. So whoever makes the Swiss gear, you didn't send me a jacket. Too bad. You're going to lose out on my services during these Olympics.
Well, unlike a piece of Swiss cheese, I don't see many holes in this.
Whoa, that was good.
There you go.
Did you write that down? Did you have that in your notes?
I'm a father now. Okay. Dad joke era. No, but in all seriousness, this team is so rock solid. The thing that's interesting about my response to this team, or my thoughts on this team, is if you had have asked me at the start of the year to do this and then doing it now after the 5 slams, I think I might have a slightly different answer. Not that it would have counted them out by any means, but I think, and maybe I'm alone in this, but I feel like I've seen an improvement in this team even this season.
I agree.
Like, they were always really good, but I feel like they've even leveled up again in the last 2 or 3 months.
Agreed. Yep. I'm right there with you.
And they look like they're as confident as they've ever been. They look like they're just working together better than they ever have. They're working as a unit. They're well coached. Pierre Charette is a curling whiz, an encyclopedia. And I think we said this about Silvana on another episode, but I mean, Pierre, man, if he's not talking about curling, he's inhaling. Like he's taking a second to breathe. That's, goes through the man's head 24/7. And I love that about him. I don't know. I haven't seen this team in the whole quadrennial play as well as they're playing now. Would they win the last 2 slams?
Yeah, won the last 2 slams. They have a great winning percentage. They're 87% winning percentage on the year. They're just behind Homan for year-to-date points as well. As we heard when we were reviewing GIM, they're just behind Rachel overall in the overall standings for points, but year-to-date, the gap is even closer. They're only like 10 points behind.
Yeah, and it's not like teams are rolling over for them and they're getting easy wins, or teams are just shitting the bed against them. They're playing extremely well. I find Carol has, if the setup is not what they want, she's really good at making sure she makes that double peel at the right time, or removes the center and rolls for a corner. Just kind of those important shots. They might not look the flashiest, but the ones that you need to generate points. And with Silvana, and who knows what her future holds. We heard that interview in Steinbach. It's going to mean a lot to her, I think, no matter what. And I think this team is going to be extremely tough to beat. I think they're playing as well as they ever have, and it could be a trouble for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think for me, the results speak for themselves. Like I agree with you that I think they're playing better than they ever have. The run to the last 2 slam titles has been very impressive. And as we said, the results speak for themselves. They made the final in every event they've been in this year except for one. I mean, that's incredible, right? Yeah. And they've won 4 of them. So they're having, probably their best season ever as a team, which is crazy. For me, there's 2 questions looming over this team, and I'll maybe throw it to you to talk about whichever one you want to. But to me, there's 2 big questions. Number 1 is obviously the Rachel Homan of it all. And it's not just that Rachel Homan has been better than Silvana like this year. So Homan's 3-0 against Tirinzoni this year. The only 3 times they've met are those 3 slam finals, and Rachel won all 3 of them. But it's also lifetime. Rachel dominates Team Tirinzoni. She's 32-10 against Team Tirinzoni lifetime. And if you look at this quad, so from the start of 2022, Rachel is 4-11 16, she's 19-3 against Silvana Tirinzoni in this quad. So that's one question I have is, I think Tirinzoni's playing better than anyone right now, including Rachel Homan, but do those head-to-head results matter in a big game? Because obviously Rachel's beaten them in a lot of big games as well. That's question number 1. Question number 2 I have is the fact that they have no Olympic medals. They're actually in the same boat as Rachel Homan, where it's sort of this weird scenario. I mean, these are dominant teams. Obviously, Silvana has that record. Their team has the record for the most consecutive wins at a world championships. And then Rachel's won back-to-back world championships now. And then, Silvana's had her opportunities to win Olympic medals with Alina. Carol and Selena are new to that program, but those 2 have had chances to win Olympic medals and they have none. Their Olympic medal cabinet is empty. So does that also play into it? Does their mental state get affected by that? So I'll let you choose which of those 2 questions you want to tackle. But for me, those are the 2 big questions heading into Cortina for this team.
Yeah, but I'll tackle the mental one first with, Rachel having that win-loss record advantage outright over Silvana. That's a good point. There's no doubt every human is going to have that if there's a big obstacle you haven't been able to overcome as often as you'd like to. Obviously, that's going to creep into your thoughts when you attempt it the next time. But at the same time, wins and losses when you get to the Olympics, the past means jack shit. And it just matters who shows up that week. I think Tirinzoni is good enough to beat Rachel Homan's team and on any given day. Now, I also think that Homan's team is certainly, as they've proved, good enough to beat Tirinzoni's team. I think it's like that classic Phil and Tiger kind of comparison where whoever shows up on that day. Now, obviously, I was a Tiger guy, but anyway, we won't talk golf. But I really just think it's who shows up and who has the better week between these two teams. I think Rachel might have a little bit more breathing room, where she doesn't have to absolutely play her absolute best, where Tirinzoni might, if that makes sense. But I think this team is too experienced. They're too good to let something like that get in the way of their pursuit of success, if that makes sense. And then what was the other question again? The no Olympic medals?
Correct. Yeah. Does that play a role in mental preparation?
I think it does, but at the same time, every person in the world, no matter what sport you are, whenever they win their first medal, they didn't have Olympic medals either the day before, sort of thing. So right. I think, again, it just goes back to experience. This team is red hot. They're not going to let those thoughts creep in. They're just, if they can go out, just find that gear that they've been playing in for the past month and a half or so, none of that shit matters, in my opinion. And it's just full steam ahead. And, that whoever's leading after that 10th end, that's the one who's going with the medal.
Right.
Wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining the rules of the game to me.
Yeah,
whichever team will have more points will win the game. And I think that's great analysis that you can only find here on the Broom Brothers. But I think I'm obviously just joking, but I agree in a sense. Like, I interviewed Alina when I talked to all the captains, all the Rock League captains over the summer, and it felt like she was serious. Like, she had a good attitude. She kind of said, I've won a lot in my career. Like, yes, would I like to have the Olympic medal in my trophy case? Of course I would. But if I don't, it doesn't make it so that I didn't have a successful career or that I wasn't a great player, and I felt like she was being honest. Like, I think sometimes, you interview an athlete and they say stuff like that and you're like, yeah, but realistically, we both know it eats you up inside. And I think anyone who knows Alina, which you and I both do, I can see that being her actual attitude. And so I think she's going in with a good attitude and hopefully that translates. The Olympics does funny things to people, and you just never know. So that could factor in. And I do think it is a bit of an advantage for Homan, kind of knowing that she has Silvana's number. I mean, 19-3 in this quad is staggering. But again, anything can happen at the Olympics, and you just have to get yourself into that game and hope Rachel has an off day or you have a great day or both. And it looks good. And as you mentioned, might be Silvana's last Olympics. So does that play into the mind? Like, there's a lot of fascinating storylines with this team. I think we've talked about, Anna Hasselborg and some of the other curlers where they're fascinating because you could see such a wide range of possibilities. And I feel like Tirinzoni is fascinating because there's just so many storylines for them. And so it's pardon me, something we'll be paying attention to as we head into the Olympics. Now, I'll let you go first, Robbie, because you seem to be very upset if we have the same picks. And I'm thinking you and I are going to have the same picks for this one. So I will let you go first.
First of all, I'd just like to add one thing, that it's good to know that Alina Petz is a Cool Runnings fan based on that medal comment. Or went to the Bill Shearhart high performance weekend camps, and he always shows that clip.
It's one or the other. Yeah.
Tirinzoni, obviously, no doubt, their best finish is gold.
Yeah.
I expect to see them in that final. I'd be very, very obviously surprised if it wasn't a Canada-Switzerland final on the women's side.
Yeah.
And I think for their worst, I think it's fourth. I think I just don't see them not in a medal game. I know that's kind of bold, and I'm not trying to add any extra pressure to them, but this team they're just so head and shoulders above so many of the others in the field. And, I could see them having a bad game here and there. They're human, but I don't see them having that many. So I'm going first as top and 4th as their worst.
Same. So there you go. Did it feel better that you got to say it first, though?
Yeah, we texted all day about this, right?
I mean, it speaks for itself, right? Like Shoreview has their playoff odds at 91%. I think when you look at the other teams in the field, you look at what Tirinzoni's done this season. They literally, pardon me, they have not lost to a team ranked 26 plus. And some of the teams in this field are ranked 26 plus. So you have that. You also have just their overall record. I mean, they're 58-9 this year. They're not going to go to the Olympics and go 3-6. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And yeah, goes without saying, of course, gold is their best result. I mean, they've won the last 2 slams. They won the players, which is the hardest slam to win going into this event. They've won the last 3 players, by the way. So, pardon me. Yeah, it's to me, that's the obvious choice. I agree. I think even in a world where they don't have a great week, they're finding their way into the playoffs. So yeah, 1 and 4 for me as well. All right. We are going to move over to the men's side of the ledger, but before we do, a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by Goldline Curling. Head on over to goldlinecurling.com for all of your curling supply needs. Robbie, I got to try out my shoes last week, my momentum bolts, and they were smooth. They were nice. They were smooth. They fit nice, and it's taking me. I need to adjust. I need to adjust a little bit because I've been a lifetime like Asham / hardline like disc, like circular discs. Goldline is more of the like it's more like
shape of your foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I went out there and for the first, it kind of felt like breaking in new skates or something. It was a little bit like, ooh, okay, I got to get used to this. But I will say, just loved the feel of the shoe. Just super comfortable, very smooth. I assume that I will once again become one of the world's top 100 leads in no short order. So yeah, I hadn't thrown in like a year and a half. And
I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah, what can I say? I loaded up the Linda Moore, what Linda Moore would call the control zone. Loaded it up, all in the 4-foot lines, all in the top of the house. Let my sweepers get to it. And honestly, Bendik Ramsfjell said he saw that Instagram story and said he offered his sweeping services if Serena Gray Withers and her team wanted to challenge me to an on-ice competition, because as we know, I dusted them in sprints earlier this year. And so he said, oh, maybe Gray Withers wants to have an on-ice competition. I will sweep for you. So Zoe Cinnamon, the bun, as I call her, if you want to have a lead on lead violence next year, I get Bendik sweep. I mean, honestly, with Bendik sweeping, I don't know if I could miss.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah. So
I really don't think so. And no one's going to bother you.
Exactly. Well, and that too. And that if I start trash talking, I do not have to worry about the consequences with Bendik around. So check out goldlinecurling.com for all of your curling supply needs. They've got it all. Brooms, shoes, gloves, pants, whatever you need, they've got it.
Great for shoveling, by the way. Lots of stretch in the arms and nice and comfy, keeps you warm.
It's beautiful. So check it out, goldlinecurling.com, the choice of champions. All right, let's head on over to the men's side of the sheet, and we are going to once again talk about a country with only one team in the field. They don't even have a mixed doubles representative, no women's representative, so they are carrying the flag for Germany. It's Team Muskatewitz, who had a great year last year, but this year maybe not as much. They're the world number 17 coming into the Olympics. Ken Palm has them in basically the same spot. He's got them at number 16. They're actually coming into the Olympics with a 500 record. They're 26-26 on the year, which is pretty rare in both of the men's and women's fields. Most of the men's and women's teams are coming in with winning records. Even if the record is not amazing, it's a winning one. Shoreview has their gold medal chances at 1.1%, has their playoff chances at 20.6%. Their best results this year, they made the quarterfinals of the Slam back in Saskatoon. They qualified at the Hearing Life Canadian Open. They also made the semifinals in Kitchener-Waterloo, which was quite a strong field. But other than that, it's been kind of a struggle this year, Robbie. They have had many events where they haven't qualified. In fact, over half of their events this year, they haven't qualified. So hasn't been the year maybe we were expecting out of Mark Muskatewitz, but we will see them at the Olympics. Your thoughts on the Germans?
Well, I really like this team. I think they're a very, very strong curling team. I said that last year when I first kind of really saw them up close. They're well coached. Ryan Sherrard on the bench, former Canadian junior champion who just makes his home in Germany. He's been a great presence to that team. And Ryan's from New Brunswick originally. So I actually, look, he and I just know each other from way back. So we kind of just chit chat on the road sort of thing. And he really likes the direction this team is going in. I feel like I have to echo my comments sort of like I did with Ramsfell. I think this is a good team. I think an Olympic medal is in their destiny somewhere. I just don't think it's 2026 in Cortina. Last year, it was almost like they were just, almost so new that they just didn't let things phase them maybe. They just seem more confident. They seem more fluid. This year, they're just thinking a little bit more, and we're not getting that exact precision that we saw last year. Like I remember when they played Gushu last year in St. John's.
Yeah.
And they were just like giant killers, just fearless. It was fun to watch. And I just didn't see that big performance out of them yet this season. And I feel like the Olympics is not the place to try and have that for the first time, if that makes sense. But a good team and can make a lot of shots.
Good team. And they're a young team,
right.
And that's kind of what you were touching on. Mark's a little bit older. He's 29, I believe, but the other three guys, Benny, Felix, and Johannes, they're all just out of juniors. They're 23, I believe. So yeah, they're a young team. And yeah, as you said, last year, their record was 64-34. So they had an extremely good record last year. This year, they're 26-26, as we said, and their record against top 25 teams is quite poor. They're 10-23 against teams that are in the top 25. And so, when you're heading into an Olympics and basically every team in this Olympics field is a top 25 team, I believe Czechia is the only team that's outside of the top 25 in terms of the teams who are in this Olympics. You're talking about a real tough hill to climb, I think. And so, yeah, I'm really with you in that I want to like them. I want to like their chances. I want to sit here and say they're going to be in the mix. Like they won the Euros last year too. But I think one thing, and I think this is the appropriate time to talk about this, but Broom Brothers heads will know early this season when you and I were talking about the Broom changes. And I mentioned I'd been talking to a few top curlers who had said that they thought there were teams that the Broom changes were going to hit harder than others, just in terms of like the foam getting softer. Mark Muskatewitz's team is a team that came up to me. Like they didn't come up to me, but like people were talking about them as, they've got Felix Messenziel, Johannes Scheuel, amazing sweepers. And it felt like Germany's game is very aggressive. They rely on Mark's drawing ability to get themselves out of a lot of trouble. He's a very good freeze player. And that's why I think they caused a lot of teams problems last year, was because when they had ends where they got behind, they could make those freezes, or Mark could make that draw to the pin that they either needed for 1 point or they needed to get out of trouble. And I had a couple top curlers say to me last year, like, watch out for Muskatewitz this year, because they were a team where it felt like their sweeping was really making a lot of shots for them. Now, that's not to say Mark is now missing everything, because of course he's not. They've still beat a lot of good teams this year, and they made the quarterfinals of a Slam. I'm not trying to say that, but it was just fascinating to me that got told to me, and we've kind of seen that play out, that just nerfing that sweeping that little bit has maybe affected them more than it's affected some other teams.
Yeah, I would agree. I would totally agree with that. I didn't think of that at the time, but that does make a lot of sense.
I think it's just the strategy. I think that, yeah, like I said, their strategy, they play very aggressive and they rely on big draws to get out of trouble. And if you feel like you can't just have that, you just lose that little bit of control over the rock and the sweeping.
Yeah.
That could be part of what we're seeing here.
Yeah. And one thing I will say that kind of ties into my comment, they're a team that I see an Olympic medal for somewhere in their destiny, somewhere in the future.
For sure. They're great players.
No, and the teams that play like that play aggressive, they play the shots they should instead of kind of wimping out and playing something safer and miss it, and they miss it again. But then, when they start making it, when they start maturing, when they get a little bit older, those are the teams that go on to dominate.
Yeah. That's what pays off down the line. Yep. That's what pays off down the line for sure. I'm not, and yeah, I don't want people to read that as I'm knocking their strategy. I don't think their strategy is bad by any means. They play more aggressively than most teams. And it seems like it's gotten them maybe into a little more trouble this year, obviously, than it did last year, where they had like a 75% winning percentage. And this year they're sitting at, or a 70% winning percentage. And this year they're sitting at, 500. So
yeah.
Time for best finish, worst finish, and I just don't see them making the playoffs. I think sixth place is probably their ceiling. They have good, they can beat top teams, so I could see them getting wins against other teams that are kind of in the same zone as them. China, maybe Sweden, Czechia, the USA. I think all those teams that are kind of in that might get really, really lucky and sneak into a playoff spot, but probably won't. I think they're in that kind of clump where they could beat those teams, but I don't see them beating Mowat, Schwaller, Jacobs. So yeah, I have their best finish as 6 and I have their worst finish as 9. I don't see them finishing last. I think they pick up a win or two along the way. So I don't think they're a last place team for me, but yeah, that's kind of where I have them.
Yeah, and I would agree. And my predictions are very similar on that. And I agree with everything you said. I think we're going to see them, I don't want to say have a breakout year at the Olympics, but I think when they match up against those teams that they're kind of equal to, if that makes sense, I think they're going to win a lot of those games because I do think this team has a lot of talent. I have them one peg higher for their best. I have them at 5th.
Yep.
I agree with you. I don't see them in the playoffs at the end of the week. But I could see them potentially going on a run and getting close and just not being there. So I'm going to say 5th, and then I'm going to say 9th is their worst. I don't see them being dead last. But yeah, I really don't see them finishing 9th. I don't. But
yeah, I think they're closer to the playoff picture than not. I
100%
for sure. Yeah. All right, and now let's get to one of the men's favorites. It is the Swiss men. They're kind of going to look similar to Team Tirinzoni. Maybe their overall record not as good, but they are also the world number 2. It's Team Schwaller. Their world number 2, Ken Pomeroy has them as number 3, so he has Jacobs just ahead of them. The World Curling Tour rankings have Jacobs at 3, Schwaller at 2, or sorry, Jacobs at 5. I didn't realize they had fallen off. I guess the last couple slams, Ross White, Matt Dunstone passed them, but yeah, so Jacobs is 5 in the world, but 2 on double takeout. Schwaller number 3. Their record on the season 46-16, so very good season for them. Shoreview Analytics has their gold medal chances at 13.5%, has their playoff chances at a very nice 69.3%. Their best results this year, obviously, they finally broke through and won that slam. They won the Canadian Open in Saskatoon. That was the second slam for Benoit, but his first in 7 years. And it was the first slam for Yannick, Sven, and Pablo. They also made the finals of the European Championships. They lost to Nicolas Adine in that final in Loja. And they also won in Trentino in that Olympic warm-up event in Italy to start the year, which had a very strong field. Retornaz was there, Danny Casper was there, etc. And just a great year in general on tour. They've made the playoffs in every event they've played in this season. They're coming into the Olympics hot. Robbie, where do you have Schwaller at, or tell me where you're at with the team in general.
I think this team is going to be a very big problem for a lot of the top teams. I think they're coming in with a lot of momentum. We saw them lose the semifinals, I think, in Steinbach. I think it was semifinals.
Yes.
Ross White. And that game, I called that game with Chelsea Carey. It was a classic. I mean, that was a toe-to-toe, good old-fashioned GER slobber knocker. Just, make. And then finally there was a missed draw that kind of let, I think, Ross got a steal, and he sort of pulled ahead. But that was one of the best curling games I've seen all year. So that could have went either way. They're in the final. If they had won that, and very, very, I don't want to say highly likely, but a very good chance to win 2 slams in a row.
Yeah, they made the semis twice this year. Sorry to interrupt you. At the Players, and they also made the semis in Tahoe as well.
Yeah, we always knew this team was really good, but I think it's almost like now they know how good they are. And they're just kind of breaking through and sort of, it's hard to call it a breakthrough because they've always been there, and they've been in the top 10 for how many years, and top 5 in the world for some time. But they're just a team that, and maybe it's a confidence thing. It's almost like they've just all decided they were going to level up. And I know I said all of them, but specifically, in my opinion, Benoit. Yeah. Benoit was always really good, but man, he is like one of the best right now on the planet. Big weight, quiet weight. He's so close on everything. And Benoit, I think we interviewed him on our first episode, did we not? Or one of our
first ever episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And he is just such a cool cat that you like, when you talk to someone and you just know the bright lights are not going to phase him. Benoit, well, A, he's already seen those lights, but B, I just don't think he's going to get any of those Olympic nerves. I don't think he's going to let anything get to him. He's just going to play his game. And if he's on fire, man, oh man, teams are going to have to play well to beat this team.
Totally agree. And I think one thing that we have talked about on broadcast, and you can just kind of see as someone who follows the sport, this is a guy that leveled up specifically with the up weight. Benoit's not a huge guy. Like, if you see him, like, he's in great shape, but he's not super tall. He's probably, 5'7", 5'8". He's not like a big, broad guy. And he would be the example I would point to. Robbie, I'm sure you've been through this before too, when you talk to junior curlers, and especially if they're smaller, right? They're teenagers, maybe they weigh 80 pounds or whatever. And you hear them say, like, I just don't know if I can generate peel weight. I can't. They won't even say they say I can't throw a peel. I can't get enough power. I'm not strong enough. And Benoit proves that it's technique too. Like, obviously you have to be strong and you got to have good core strength and all of those things, but you can generate power because Benoit can throw it as hard as anyone. And he's not Amos Mosaner. He's not 6'6", 240. And so that is one weapon that he has really added to his game that has unlocked a ton for Team Schwaller. I think back to that shot that he made at the Canadian Open that ended up being the shot of the week, I think, where it was one of the contenders for shot of the week. Ksenia Schwaller won with her spinner draw, which was insane. But it was that kind of like, it was almost like a quad. It was like you ran it back into the pile and all the angles were perfect and it just spilled everything. And that led to a big end for Schwaller. It's just like Benoit didn't necessarily, like, it's not that he's been bad at throwing the big weight, but he didn't necessarily have that, like, that feeling as an opponent where you're like, that's a weapon. Like, we don't want to leave Benoit a chance to make a big splash for a big score. And you're right. I think that's unlocked a ton for this team. Pablo Lechat-Couche-Pan is one of the best sweepers in the world, particularly on the carve. I think he helps Benoit's draws immensely. And Benoit is so good at drawing, his nickname is Mr. T. So when you already have a guy whose nickname is Mr. T because he never misses the T line, and then you add the sweeping of Pablo on top of that, and Sven too, this team really has it all. And I really wanted to bring up, and you mentioned this, Robbie, when we had Mark Kennedy on the show after the Olympic trials, he talked about, and we discussed this already, so I'm repeating myself, but he said, you know, for us, every year I won the Olympic trials, I won the Brier the year before. You want to win that big one. And for them, I think winning that slam really was the big one. I think it really felt to them, and I said it when we recapped the players, when we recapped the Canadian Open. I talked to Yannick right after they won, and he just said, "This was one of our goals. This quad. We were running out of time to achieve it, but we got to achieve it." And it really does give you that confidence when you win that slam to say, you know what, we can win the big one. And I think that, yeah, they're coming into the Olympics thinking they can win. And I think that makes them even more dangerous.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it shows every time they're out there. Like not even just their shot making, just the way they play the games. They're so confident. And the other thing we haven't talked about is Glenn Howard on the bench.
Yeah.
You know, what a weapon to have, you know, in terms of knowledge and just someone to bounce ideas off, or, you know, who's seen more situations on or off the ice around the sport of curling than Glenn Howard. You know, he played till he was, well, I don't want to say a number on the air, but he played till he was, you know, in his latter years, we'll put it that way. And I just think that was such a smart pickup by that team to have someone like Glenn on the bench, and also just a gem of a human, someone you like to talk to, someone you really enjoy engaging with and learning from. So I don't know, man. I just, if I'm on the other team, I don't like looking across and seeing these guys standing in front of me.
Yeah, for sure. And we'd be remiss not to also mention Howard Vad Pedersen, who has been their coach this entire quad. And I think with Glenn coming on board, Howard's been more of the kind of technical role, and he's very good at that. And so I think, yeah, it's the combination of both of them really where you think like this is an extremely well coached team. And I think they work really well together. I think sometimes you see teams will have two coaches, like they'll have their team coach and then maybe like the national team coach. Yep. And there sometimes isn't synergy between those two. It's like the national team program kind of has one agenda and the team coach has another agenda, whatever. I feel like I see Glenn and Howard working together extremely well.
Couldn't agree more.
And so I think that has really worked for this team also. So yeah, I think incredible team, and I really like their chances. I think they're very, very solid. And yeah, for all the reasons we've said, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in Cortina. So Robbie, I'll let you go first. Where do you have them best and worst?
I'm going to repeat one of my former comments on, I think it was a fellow Swiss team on the women's side. I'm going to go best finish number one, gold. There's no reason. I think this team is absolutely a contender for gold. Are they a lock or a clear favorite? No, I'm not going to say that, but I think they're certainly capable of winning the gold. Especially if Benoit's dialed in. That will, I'm not trying to add any pressure to him or anything, but if he's hot, that team, man, they've just got it right through the lineup. They're really solid and hard to hide from. And honestly, I think their worst is fourth. I don't see a world where they don't make the playoffs, at least the top four, with this field, especially as we had talked about the momentum coming into it and just the improvement we've seen from this team. I think the sky's the limit for this team. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to say it's who I'm predicting, but I'm going to say I would not be surprised to see them on the top of the podium.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we are going to give our final predictions next week. We have our next episode. We have our last Olympic preview episode coming up, and it doesn't take a math whiz to figure out which teams we've left for the final episode. It'll be Great Britain and Canada on both sides of the sheet. And then we will give our final predictions when we record that episode as well. But for the sake of being different, I will say that their top finish is gold. Agreed with you. Certainly this could break right for them and they win. And I'll say their worst finish is fifth, just because I do think the men's field is quite stacked. There are teams in here where if they get hot, or conversely, if for whatever, like it's the first Olympics for Yannick and Pablo. So, do the bright lights get to them? Yannick's also playing mixed doubles. So does that tire him out? Is that a factor? So I think, again, I agree. Like, to me, Shoreview had their playoff chances at 69%. That feels low to me. I actually think their playoff chances are probably closer to like 80 or 85. Because if they're going to miss the playoffs, then you kind of need, like, if you're assuming they miss, that probably means Mowat and Jacobs make it. And then you need 2 of the 3 of Retornaz, Adine, Casper, Muskatewitz to make the playoffs. I don't see that happening. So to me, I think their playoff odds are higher. But again, we've been through tons of, Rachel Homan missed the playoffs in 2018, coming in as the defending world champion and the world number 1. Like, it's not, good teams have bad tournaments at the Olympics. So, and just, it's more to be different from you. I will say best finish first, worst finish 5th. But again, I very much expect them to be in the playoff mix and playing for a medal. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
There you have it. The 5th of 6 Olympic previews in the books. As we said, we will be back next time with Great Britain and Canada to wrap it all up and get you all set for Milano Cortina. We will also have a Scotties recap episode coming up somewhere in here soon. We've got just there's so much going on in the curling world, but we'll have a recap there. And then, of course, as the Olympics get underway, we will have several recap episodes for that too. We are thrilled that you were with us. We will be back. Thanks again to Goldline for this. If you want to see the video of this episode and see my beautiful Team Canada jacket, you can follow us on YouTube or just at the Broom Brothers. We're also on every social media at the Broom Brothers. And if you like the show, you can rate it on your podcast app or tell a friend. If you got a curling friend who likes curling and would love to learn more about it, send them our way. We would love to have them. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you back here very soon. Goodbye.